Bama has another chance to do something that they did not accomplish last year. They struggled to do 2 years ago, but they used to do all the time, and that's dominate on the road. Late night in Stark Vegas, the Crimson Tide will have that opportunity, and we're going to talk about it here on Bama Tailgate Daily as we get into the new quarterback and what his role is, Jalen Milroe, taking this team on the road. Before we go there, though, you're a 5-star prospect, and we want you on the roster. If you're not already a subscriber, please do it right now. Be part of Bama Tailgate Daily. Be part of the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for being here. It's the first road test of the year. Alabama at Mississippi State. I feel like it's a midnight game. It's really 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. I can't stand these late start times like this. Maybe that makes me sound like old man, get off my yard. Or maybe it's because you watch all these other games all day and then you're not even getting to bed until midnight. But TV determines when they play the game. So Alabama is playing the latest game in the conference, and we'll be watching it, right? And it's an important game for the Crimson Tide. And I'm going to tell you guys why it's important. The reasons that it's important is that Alabama, if they're going to get back to being Alabama, they've got to play the same that they do at home on the road. And that's something that they used to do. There's been teams that actually played better on the road than they did at home. You know, teams that just wiped out the opposition. Last year, Bama struggled. They lost 2 games on the last play, LSU, and before that, Tennessee. And they barely put away Texas. They struggled against Ole Miss, and they had a big lead against Arkansas, blew it, and came back and won. And the reason I left that one for last is because that game was started by Jalen Milroe, and now he's Alabama's quarterback. So he does have some experience on the road, and he also has experience in winning against a top 25 team in Ole Miss on Saturday. In a game that was really hyped up. There was a lot of smack talk and trolling going on. And it felt like Ole Miss was going to come in and reshuffle the deck in the SEC by beating up on Alabama. And it just didn't happen. Milroe played a brilliant second half. You saw some design runs for him. He's got really great soft touch on the deep balls. And he led Alabama to a convincing 24-10 win at home. Now, can they take that and build for the second half? A couple things that he's going to need help around him, and it starts with the receivers. And he's done a nice job of developing some chemistry with the receivers that he has. Jermaine Burton brings a lot of experience, transferred from Georgia. Now he's at Alabama. We thought he might go pro last year, but he came back, and I'm glad he came back. He's having really a fantastic season so far. Another guy that I'm wondering if he might be the next star wideout, and Alabama's had some excellent wide receivers since Nick Saban's been the head coach, is Jalen Hale. Caught a touchdown last week. We started to hear that this was a guy that you needed to keep an eye on, and I'm excited about it. Is this going to be the guy that Milroe connects with on a lot of these balls that he throws deep? Is he going to be the guy when you look back and you go, you know what? It seems like a lot of these receivers, I talked to Jake Coker on my Roll Tide Pods Elephant in the Room podcast. He talks about having Calvin Ridley on his team. You know, think if you had Julio Jones like John Parker Wilson did. Hey, all you got to do is just get the ball to Julio, right? You know, Tua had 4 guys he could throw the ball to. Bryce made everyone good, but, you know, you just look back and it's like, okay, you have that star receiver, and you started to see it like when Smitty was a freshman on his way to winning a Heisman in 2020, but he was contributing in 2017. So maybe it's Jalen Hale. Maybe he's the next star wide receiver. And the way that Milroe throws those beautiful deep balls, hopefully he'll continue to develop that chemistry. But right now, it feels like Jalen Hale could be the next great wide receiver at Alabama at a very young age. The problem is, and this is something that I thought about doing a whole show on, is that the snaps have got to be there. They've got to be more consistent. Going into this season, I never would have thought that Seth McLaughlin was going to be an issue. but he is. I thought he'd be a strength. I thought he'd be like an umpire in baseball. That's great. You never hear about him. But, last week he snapped the ball over Milroe's head on the goal line, which Nick Saban thankfully is saying, hey, you know what? We're going to get under center from now on. Let's do that, please. McLaughlin's got to get him the ball. He just has to. Or you're going to have to go to the Brockermeyer boy or somebody else to get underneath there that can snap the ball. And you might lose experience, and he might not have someone that's as good blocking. But at the end of the day, you can't quarterback when you're constantly having the ball snapped in front of you or behind you. So hopefully McLaughlin can get this figured out. Maybe he's just going through a slump right now. Maybe there's an injury involved. I don't know. But we know that he's way better than this. It's been an issue for Alabama, and it's got to improve. With the win, Bama up in the polls to number 11. Talked about that yesterday. But I think this is a really good place for this team that's building. I love having a Crimson Tide team that has to prove something. I think that's when Nick Saban's at his best, when he has a team that he can go in there and say, look, guys, they don't believe in us. They think that Paul Feinbaum said 2 weeks ago, if I lose, they're going to run me out of town. It's over, right? This week, it's Lane Kiffin that's, obviously has never won a big game. But that's kind of the way that the media works. Nick Saban loves to deal with teams that have something to prove. The opposite of that is rat poison. And that's when the media tells you, oh, you're the best ever. You can't lose. And for the Crimson Tide, under Nick Saban, he has really done his best work when he has a team that has something to strive for. Although he's had teams that have been number one all year long and had success with them. But I think it's a different challenge. I think this is where he really enjoys going to work every day, because I think it gets his juices flowing when instead of being the team with the target, he's getting his team to go after the team with the target on their back, which would be Georgia right now. Alabama has dominated this series with Mississippi State, 87-17-3 over the years. I'm going to say something, though, that might surprise you guys. This is a little bit of a rivalry, unlike Ole Miss. And the reason I say that is that Mississippi State, over the years, has been a really physical football team. They've surprised Alabama a few times and beaten them. They seem to always just be a real thorn in the Crimson Tide side. I always felt like the reason why, and I probably said this on multiple shows, is that I just feel like because they're in Alabama's media market, they get kind of treated like a stepchild, and that is a big motivator too. And when Alabama has had teams that weren't good, this is the team that would come in and beat you. They got Mike Shula fired, losing the game in Tuscaloosa. He struggled against them every year. Mike DuBose lost to these guys and struggled. They had Alabama on the ropes in 2017, and it took a late comeback to beat them. I'm kind of sad, though, that Mike Leach isn't going to be there. Well, let me rephrase that. I'm very sad that Mike Leach isn't going to be there. We miss him, and I miss his conversations, and I miss the energy that he brought. The fact that he was an outside-the-box football coach who never took himself too seriously. If you asked him a question, he'd answer it. And we lost him way too early. But it was always fun when Mike Leach coached Mississippi State. Although Nick Saban had a ton of success against Mississippi State, they have had a tough time scoring against Alabama. This year, though, look, they got Will Rogers back. Zach Arnett is their head coach. He was apparently the head coach in waiting. And I heard that Mike Leach was thinking about retiring and that Arnett was going to be the guy that replaced him. And then obviously the tragic loss when he had the heart issue last year before their bowl game. But the Pirate liked Arnett. Arnett came in, changed the offense from the air raid to a more pro style set. This is a team that is trying to figure out what they're doing again. But they do have playmakers, and although they got beat down by LSU, physically handed to them, and then they lost a shootout with South Carolina, this could be a dangerous game for Alabama because Mississippi State showed some signs of life in that loss to South Carolina last week. And again, I mentioned that the game is 8 o'clock on Saturday night. That is a late game. I mean, way too late for me. I'm going to be very tired in the second half. But you know what? I'll be back on here. I'll stay up late for you guys, and we'll do the post-game live show as soon as the game ends. So I'll get your thoughts on it, and hopefully it'll be one of those games that Bama takes care of business, and we start to plan for next week's game against Texas A&M. But we're not there yet. We got to stay right where we're at. And the whole thing is, what can Jalen Milroe do with this team? How can they step forward? And will Alabama be able to build on the success they had in the second half this week? Milroe, his ability to run, the deep passing, can the offensive line get better? Can McLaughlin snap the ball to the quarterback consistently? And if he doesn't, how much longer does Nick Saban stick with him before Brockermeyer comes in and starts snapping? Because it's becoming a big issue right now for the Crimson Tide. And the other thing is, if you get touchdowns, don't get them called back. And you got to play clean football, but I thought they did that in the second half last week. All right, guys, look, say Roll Tide by subscribing to our channel, Bama Tailgate on YouTube. Appreciate you guys being there. The Tailgate show is this week, 5 to 7 at the Floribama. Want to see you there if you're in the area. If not, just tune in live. And remember, it's a radio show that we're recording that'll play Saturday across the state of Alabama. So you guys are part of the early pregame show, and that's kind of why it's a little different format than here. We do play commercial breaks and all that stuff, but we have great guests, and we'll do the same thing again this week. So appreciate that. And this show brought to you in part by New Life Art, Daniel Moore. And right now with the promo code Bama Tailgate, buy one, get one free. The 2024 Crimson and White Fine Art calendars. So those would be there just in time for the holidays. And make everyone at work very happy with a calendar like that. It'd be nothing better than to have that calendar over there where people can walk by and relive all those great moments in Crimson Tide history. And if you sit across from an Auburn fan, even better. Maybe you sit near a Tennessee fan or a Georgia fan. There's just so many great moments against those teams that Daniel Moore does a fantastic job of highlighting. So again, that's Bama Tailgate. That's the promo code. And when you put it in the cart, it's supposed to just click in a second one for you for free. So if you have any trouble, just let them know. All right, that's it for the show, guys. Thanks for being here. Bama Tailgate Daily. And again, if you're not already part of our roster, we consider you a 5-star. Make sure that you join now. I'm Mick Gillispie. Roll Tide.